But anyway, Jesse, thank you. Stay in touch. You
Yeah.
look great.
Let me know if you need anything else.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sounds
All
good.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Maria.
Take
Good to see
care.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Where are you?
I'm Jesse Lambert. I'm an artist and I live in New York City, specifically in Queens in Jackson Heights, an area that people have called the epicenter of the epicenter. Central Queens was hit very hard by coronavirus. And I actually live 5 blocks from Elmhurst Hospital, which was on the news a lot as one of the hospitals that was featured on New York Times video kind of early on in the crisis, awareness of how serious things were. So I live very close to the hospital. We hear sirens all the time, ambulance sirens a lot. I started doing comic work, I guess you could call it graphic novel, sequential art, however you want to call it, at home while it was difficult to get to the studio. I have a studio in Williamsburg, and I've been working on some comic book art to begin with, but this became something that helped me in the early days to just kind of process and deal with everything that was going around us. And I also have a list of themes that I want to keep doing. I'm sort of taking a little pause with the COVID comics right now, but I know I'll get back to them. This is the first page that I worked on, and this was kind of like the arrival of COVID. So I had this sequence here going, and there's no words in this. I added the words after I scanned and put this into the computer. So I left spaces for the words. You can kind of see, where I left spaces for the words to be added later. And I have a font that I made from my own handwriting. So I add that with the images later. Sometimes I'll kind of pencil them in. You'll see there, it says, then suddenly everything was different. So this is kind of the arrival of COVID, like dawning, almost like the sun, and then proliferating, and then kind of like making its way to our landscape, the landscape of Queens here, which is a very iconic image of the 7 train and the Citibank building in Long Island City, and the subway tracks. So that's page 1. This is page 2. And I think I have most of the words kind of penciled in here, and some of it changed later after, I kind of added the words later. This one was, the theme was time. So just the feeling of time under, all these like social restrictions and everyone being at home and having our schedules disrupted, and then just kind of sort of semi-humorous musings about movies and dealing with warping of time. And there was this meme that was going around about time spent looking at exponential graphs, and so that felt really relevant. And comparing that, when I drew this, it was towards the end of March, so things were still kind of progressing. They hadn't gotten as bad as they are now, even though we're kind of on the other side of the curve now. But you can see where it was going.
Wow. Scary.
A lot of uncertainty at that time. This one, the theme was Jackson Heights and Elmhurst, Central Queens, and Elmhurst Hospital. And so that this is the front of our building. This is a kind of iconic view of the hospital, the trauma center, emergency. And then this is kind of a panorama of people waiting to be tested outside of the hospital.
So wait, Jesse, so are you taking pictures of these, or are you just standing there doing a quick sketching?
I'm doing most of these from, I've done from video.
Okay.
on the news, and a lot of times I'll composite some of the imagery, like take imagery from different sources to avoid copyright issues, because like even the news can be copyrighted if you just copy something that's iconic and easily identifiable. So like for instance, this here is like a view of the entrance to Elmhurst
Yeah.
Hospital emergency center, but it's actually made from 3 different images. It's and things have changed. I thought a lot about is that this is more of Elmhurst Hospital here. This is just a piece of a drawing that I added to it. Actually, this drawing here, I swapped up the woman on the right and added this guy. You'll see in the final drawing, I added that guy in the background, the woman in the right behind the barricade. The cheering at 7:00 is really loud in our neighborhood. It's a hour of our day. I don't know how it is in Manhattan, but yeah, it's like something that really boosts our spirits. This is a final sequence that like I'm probably going to do a few more pages in the middle, and I see like doing 12 or 16 pages in total. But this is a final sequence I thought as the ending to this comic, and it has no words, but it also speaks to that feeling of isolation. And protection, that we're protecting ourselves through isolation. So this astronaut is kind of a metaphor. The COVID-19 virus is like a planet. It's kind of vast and, taking over our world.
Wow, that's really spooky. Wow.
And then so like there is kind of this hope for what comes after, hope for, things being better.
Oh,
So
that's beautiful. Do you first sketch them and then you go over them with a marker?
Pen and ink, I use brushes.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
not pen and ink. Sometimes I use pens, but I mostly use brushes, small brushes. In terms of like reference images, these are some of the reference images printed out.
I love that.
I changed position. Like the hand actually, like what would this relate to? This would relate to, well, I didn't have anything of like, an astronaut actually like, using a torch on anything. So that like this image, like this reference would have been for that image.
What about the Creative Capital? What was that?
No, I Creative Capital is a nonprofit arts organization that supports artists. They give out a really large grant to a number of artists every year. I think it's 40, 50 artists get a large grant. I think 50,000, something like that. I made it to the finalist stage, but I didn't get the grant. So made it to the final 100 artists that were considered for the grant, and all of the artists that didn't get the grant but were finalists participate in this, puts the work up on their website. It's called On Our Radar, and it just highlights the projects that came very close, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm your fan, so I love everything you do. Isn't Jesse's work great? He's definitely on our radar. He should be on yours too. This is our new series to promote the art and the artists that we love, especially during the coronavirus pandemic. Continue to follow us, and if you like Jesse's work as much as we do, write his name below and we'll get him live on Instagram. So until then, be safe and be well.